Is it audible?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, fine. So let me start with once again. Hello, good day. This is Annabelle, and I will be taking over the basics of iOS pen tests in this session. And thank you for letting me join in and present this topic. I hope you all have a wonderful time here. And before starting the topic, let me introduce myself briefly. I'm a web app and mobile app pen tester, and like I've been in this industry since the past like three or 3.5 years, and I also have an educational background in engineering. Um, I'm just a beginner in this iOS pen test since I've started testing this in about like a few months timeline. So I am not an expert, but yes, I'm learning each and every day. So yeah, that's a little introduction about me. So let's move on to the agenda for today. So the agenda for today would be we'll be going through the introduction to iOS, followed by the IPA structure, and giving you the breakdown of what exactly an IPA looks like and uh, what are the different like qualities in it. Next would be the iOS security mechanism, which would explain why iOS is considered to be more secure as compared to Android and the reasons why people go for a jailbreak. So that's one of the main reasons why because iOS basically has a lot of mechanisms in place in order to avoid any adversaries any exploit running. So in order to do that, we go for a jailbreak. So that we'll be discussing in detail like later on in the slide. And last would be the result of iOS assessment. This will be a basic lab on how how one should go about testing it, or one should go about setting it up. And yes, so now, okay, introduction. So as we all know, iOS stands for iPhone operating system. It's the Apple's proprietary OS for all iOS devices. Uh, okay, so a mobile operating system, it's a mobile operating system just developed by Apple and distributed extensively for Apple hardware. And it's designed, the Apple designed this iOS platform with keeping in mind the security and keep at its core and ensuring that it is one of the most secure OS out there. It starts every IPA or every Apple iOS file starts with an extension .ipa and can be easily downloaded from the Apple Play Store. It's like Android, like you have it's a .apk file. Similarly, for an iOS file, we have .ipa, which is nothing but a zip file. Uh, so if you unzip it, you'll find a lot of details inside, like payload and plist file, which we'll be covering in the coming up slides. Also, there are different reasons as to why iOS is considered to be more secure as compared to Android. So that also will be covered in the next slides. Now we'll be discussing the IPA structure in detail as to what is present inside the IPA files. As you can see, there's this diagram. It is showing different sort of components present inside the IPA file. So the firstly, as you can see, it's a iTunes artwork, which consists of your logo of the app. Okay, it's basically a breakdown of the entire .ipa file. So if you unzip it, you'll find these files present inside the actual IPA. Okay, so the first will be your iTunes artwork, which is nothing but the logo of the app. It contains the logo of the app. All right. Next is your plist data. Okay. Currently, it is named as plist file, and iTunes has been converted to music. So in the current session, in the current versions, you'll find that iTunes. You won't find any app called iTunes, but it is app called music. So this particular plist file is nothing but a configuration file which contains all the they developed all the information specific to the application, like your developer name, ID, copyright information, application name, release information, and so on. So it is like your configuration file, similar to your what do you say, manifest.xml file in the Android domain or Android framework. So people who know about Android pen testing would find the resemblance in these two files. Okay, so third will be the payload. Okay, so the payload is actually it contains the .app folder, and it is specific, or let's say depending, it is specific to a different applications. It contains applications the icon that shows up on iTunes and App Store app on the iOS device. Next will be your so under the .app folder, we can see that the application contains like images, lib files, which store the user interface and so on. Next will be the provision list. Provision list is nothing but it's like a document basically. It's like a digital document that ensures that the developers or basically it is used in cases wherein the developers need to test a certain application and needs to install devices. Needs to install the applications on devices. At times it happens. I mean, in iOS, basically you cannot sideload or you cannot add any application just like Android. You need to download applications only if it is properly signed by a legitimate authority like Apple and so on. So if a particular app is not does not belong or does not come from an app store, it will not be installed by default in your iPhone. So, but in such cases, a developer cannot keep sending the apps to the Apple proprietary to get it signed and then install it. So, in such cases, what happens is Apple has given a provision wherein they can use a certain a file called mobile provision list, wherein this by installing this, they can use the apps, they can install the applications on the device and get it tested. Okay, so this file will bind your your developer account to the device, and it will ensure that only authorized person, authorized developer is using this particular application and is testing it out. So we'll be talking more on this in the further session as well. So uh, that is all for mobile provision list for now. Okay. Then we have your code signature. See, the purpose of the code signature is basically to make sure that the integrity of the app is maintained. Okay, so apart from mobile provisioning list, these come under the security mechanisms of iOS, applications. Code signature is one of them because every application is code signed and only then installed by the iOS device. So it is to ensure that there is no tampering in between, there's no changes in the application before it was being installed and things like that. So in order to ensure that the integrity is maintained, every application is signed and then by a proper developer account, and then it will be installed in your iOS device. So any kind of editing or deletion or even images will invalidate the signature and will fail, and this would cause failure in installing the applications. Okay, so next will be the bundle resource files. It contains the images, videos, sounds, depending on the application at hand. It will be present. So it's not a compulsory thing, but it will be present depending on which application has what resources or what details. So I think this was the structure in a short IP structure. So let's move on to the next part, that is mobile provisioning list. Okay, I had said earlier, this is like a demo provisioning profile, and it contains basic details like your app ID and the team and so on. So in general, what happens, unlike Android, you cannot install any app on an iOS device simply by downloading the APK from any website and installing it. It's not that simple. So for an app to be installed properly, it needs to be signed, and that signature that that needs to be. It so happens is when an application is made, it first goes to the Apple for verification, and then when it goes to the Apple, it signs with a private key of of the person who's authorized to do so. And post getting verification and post signature of the authorized person, it will come to App Store and then it will be installed in your phones. It will be available on the App Store. So what happens is when you are developing an app, you would require these provision profiles. So provision profile acts as a link between the device and the developer account. So if a person, if it's during development, if you choose which devices can run your app and which app services your app can access. So it's downloaded from, for this you need to have a developer account. Okay, this can only be done if you are having a MacBook or if you're having a developer's account. So in case you want to install any applications, or if you want to re-sign an application, you would require a developer's account. Okay. So it's basically uses you need to add your account in one of the Apple's websites, and then uh, you create this provisioning profile, which would further ensure that it will help in signing the applications in case you want to install it on your device. So this development provision profile must be installed on each and every device on which you wish to run. So if the information, if you want to install an application, you need to ensure that the provisioning profile is present in the device and should be trusted. Only then that application will be eligible to learn to install, or else it will not be installed at all in the application. You will get a blank app notification out there. So it means that application has been rejected by the iOS. So this is a kind of an important component in the iOS security module. So let's move on to discussing the security mechanisms in detail as to why iOS is considered to be the most secure counterpart as compared to Android. Okay, so as we can imagine, a lot of attacks have been, is possible on an iOS device. So these are the reasons, or these are the reasons why the iOS is considered to be the more secure one. First is a reduced attack surface. Attack surface is a code that processes attacker supplied input. So if Apple has a vulnerability in some code and the attacker cannot reach it, Apple cannot ship the code at all in iOS. So the attacker cannot reach this vulnerability. Uh, yes. So next will be the stripped down iOS. Beyond just reducing the potential code, an attacker might exploit. Apple also stripped down the number of useful applications an attacker might want to use during or after exploitation. The most obvious example here would be that there is no shell, that is bin/sh on an iOS device. Okay, in Mac OS exploits, the main goal is to try to execute a shell in a shell code. Since it's not present, that means it is not possible for us, if the device is not jailbroken, it's not possible to run any sort of exploits on the device. So this is one of the reasons, or this is one of the security mechanisms of the iOS. Third will be the code signing. Now, this is one of the most important security uh, mechanism in the iOS. Because all the binaries and libraries must be signed by a trusted authority, as we had discussed earlier, before the kernel allow them to be executed. Furthermore, only pages in memory that come from signed sources will be executed. So this means apps cannot change their behavior dynamically or update themselves unless and until it is being authorized by the signing authority. Together, these actions prevent users from downloading and executing random files from the internet. Unless and until all the apps are coming from the Apple App Store, they will be installed. But if they are not, they will not be installed at all. Apple has the ultimate approval and inspects applications before they can be used at the App Store. So in a way, it plays a role of an antivirus for the iOS devices. It inspects each app and determines if it is okay, to be hosted on the App Store. So it has a stringent a level of verification to ensure that the legitimate applications are present or are hosted in the App Store. This protection makes it very hard to get infected with the malware. In fact, only a few instances of malware have been ever found for iOS. The other impact of code signing is that it complicates exploitation. So once an exploit is executing code in memory, it might want to download or install and execute additional malicious applications. This will definitely be denied in the first level itself because uh, anything it tries to install will not be signed. Okay, so therefore exploits will be restricted to the process they originally exploit, unless it goes on to attack other features on the device. And the final part will be sandboxing. This is the final piece of the iOS defense. It basically allows even finer grained control over the actions that processors can perform other than the Unix permission system mentioned earlier. What happens, so for example, if I say there's an application, SMS application, and the web browser that run on a single user mobile. But since both of these are running very different actions, they cannot interfere with one another. So the SMS application probably doesn't need access to your web browser. Cookies and the web browser doesn't need access to your SMS. But this kind of partition, this is probably done by the sandboxing, which is not present in your Android or Android module. Third-party apps from the App Store shouldn't have access. None of these apps should have access to your to these controls other than what they are intended for. Okay, should have access to either of these things. So Sandbox basically solves this problem by allowing Apple to specify exactly what you need to, which permissions should be assigned to what application and how to stick to that. Okay, so it will not freely just give permissions to all the entities for checking, but rather it will specify which applications they would what permissions, and then accordingly it will create a divide between the applications so that none of the applications would interfere with one another's resources or one of the other activities. Like if an application has business to do with SMS, it will not have any rights, or it will not have any control on the web browser. So if it is not mentioned in their playlist, or if it's not mentioned in one of their configurations. Also, it has two effects, basically, sandboxing. Okay, it has two effects. First, it limits the damage malware can do to the device. Because if you imagine a piece of malware being able to get through the app store, imagine that if one of the cases wherein the app which is being reviewed by the app store has some sort of a malware, and it uh, like dupes them and somehow gets present in the app store, and post downloading, okay, if it gets executed, then in this case it will not have much control, or it will not have much power on the application, because the app will still be limited by the sandboxing. So it may be able to steal. Uh, so maybe if the malware is like spyware, so it will be able to steal certain details like your photos or maybe some other details, but it will not have full control of your device, or it will not have full uh, grasp of your device, because it is still being bounded by the security mechanisms of one of the security mechanisms of sandbox, which so it also makes exploitation harder. So if an attacker finds a vulnerability in the reduced attack surface and it manages to get a code executing, okay, then the payload will still be confined to these sandboxing, within the sandboxing arena. So together, all of these like components, like you have code signing and reduced attack services, sandboxing, together they all make a strong, secure OS, that is iOS application, which becomes a bit too difficult for adversaries to break into unless it is jailbroken. So yes, it becomes difficult for exploitation, but it is not impossible. There are certain ways to even bypass that, which will be a little difficult, but it is possible. So it's not simple, but it is definitely. Let's move on to the next topic. So the next will be jailbreak. So yeah, it's I just said it tries to modify iPhone, which shall not pass. This kind of reminds me of the Apple, Apple proprietary, because they do not allow any sort of changes or modifications in the iPhone. Be it if you want to install any sort of tweaks or any sort of things, it is not possible to bypass that, because the control mechanisms or the control set up by the iPhone is pretty stringent. So, in order to avoid that, in order to get away from it, people often go for jailbreaking. Let us see in detail as to what exactly is jailbreaking and why do people go for it, be it normal people or be it security professionals. Let us see the reason why we go for it and how to go about jailbreaking. We'll be also discussing the recent jailbreaks that comprises of 13.6 iOS versions, which is pretty recent. I think it has been covered or it has been released in the last month of November, last week of November. So we'll be discussing that as well in detail. So let us move right into it. Okay, so jailbreaking. So people jailbreak iOS devices for many reasons. So some of them want an open platform for which they can develop software. Others like the idea of having total control of the device. Or some require jailbreaks to install software like tweaks or any sort of software like ultrasnow to bypass cellular carrier locks. And some use jailbreak for their to use pirated software or pirated apps. But on the other hand, security professionals, those who need to pen test a certain app, they require jailbreak so that it's possible for them to gain full control to the old system and and in order to bypass the security mechanism which was set forth by the Apple in the earlier session, in the earlier slides, like code signing, sandboxing, and so on. So in order to avoid that, we security professionals go for jailbreaking. Because within the tight constraints of Apple's, I mean the constraints of the Apple, it is not possible for any person or for any professional to go about do a runtime analysis on the applications. Hence, it is considered is said that to have a jailbroken device is a must in any sort of pen test or of iOS. So, as I had said earlier, manufacturers impose a lot of restrictions due to which it is practically impossible to debug and analyze applications in runtime analysis. Okay, so yeah, the fact that normal iPhones are locked down tightly and do not allow the execution of unsigned code, it's considered to be a big roadblock when it comes to evaluating security of system and or trying to discover the security vulnerabilities. But some might say that even with an iOS development account, code signing on the iPhone is limited due to the sandbox and other restrictions. So in such cases, it is expected that the device should be jailbreaked. Okay, because the sandbox also stops a researcher from tampering and with other application files and touching a debugger. So it's not possible for any person to go for it. So let me give you these qualities of why jailbreaking should be done. It gives us root access to the file system. It gives the possibility of executing applications that haven't been signed by Apple, which includes many security tools and unrestricted debugging and dynamic analysis. So the next step is the disclaimer. This is a short disclaimer which states that jailbreaking can and will void the warranty of your device. Should something go wrong, responsibility is your own. So please proceed with caution. If you feel uncomfortable jailbreaking your device, it's probably best if you don't do it. But if you are okay with it, you can proceed. So this is a must because jailbreaking can definitely, if it is not done properly or if it has some issues, then it can lead to your device getting bricked. But it is not something that it will happen. But in worst case scenarios, one should be prepared. So what we would recommend is that you take a proper backup of the application of the entire device. Sorry, the entire device before going for jailbreak. Plus, ensure that it is a secondary device, because we don't really want you to go about jailbreaking your entire phone and stuff like that. So ensure that it is a secondary device. And also, one more thing, that ensure that if I mean make sure that the iOS version which you're going for is a lower version, because lately we are not getting jailbreaks of recent iPhone devices, because as far as I know, the latest version of iOS was 14 point something, and it's the jailbreak is not yet available right now. So it is expected, or it is like expected that to choose a device which is slightly lower, like can go for 12 or maybe 11 series, to make sure that you get proper tools or for all the phones you're using. Because at times the more latest is the iPhone, the greater difficult it is for people or for anyone to go about jailbreaking it, because at times there is no jailbreaks available in the market. So none of the tools will be able to go about pen testing it or even jailbreaking it, which kind of halts in the starting process of a pen test. So yes, with having put that aside, let me proceed with the process of jailbreak, or how you can go about jailbreaking it. So first, I would advise you to check out this subreddit called "Can I Jailbreak?" because this is a wonderful subreddit. It will give you complete information on what to expect and what prerequisites you should be having, and it will give you an entire table of which iOS device is suitable for which jailbreak application. And this is a list of things you need to keep in mind before going for a jailbreak. So it is recommended, highly recommended, that this subreddit should be visited before uh, opting for the jailbreak. Give you proper information and so on. Next is yes. So the jailbreak basically does not, unlike Android, uh, the jailbreaking or rooting applications are not common. It differs it differs like depending on the iOS version. Okay, if the iOS version, but if I use a lower version of iOS, then it will be compatible with majority of the jailbreaks. But at times it happens that depending on the iOS version and depending on the bionic chip of the device, there are some processes or some application will not be compatible. So that needs to be checked. So before you go for it, please ensure that the iOS version and your bionic chip is compatible with the device which you will be the application, the jailbreak application which you will be using. So that can be easily obtained by the Can I Jailbreak Reddit as well. So go ahead and check it. It will be match your bionic chip processor version and iOS, and see if it in which tool works for you. Yes, yeah. So it depends on the iOS versions and the bionic processor of the chip. The bionic processor, I mean, these days I think that A13 is the latest bionic processor of the chip processor. So yes, A13 will not, like I said, A13 is one of the latest iOS, latest iOS devices or processor chips. So it is not at all compatible with the normal jailbreak. It will have a whole different jailbreak too. So depending on what your iOS version and what uh, the version or the bionic processor you have, your process might change. It will not be easy, but it depends on what iPhone you have. Next will be the rundown or the list of these are the processor chips, basically A11 devices, A12, A13. So these are the bionic chips of the processors. I mean, bionic processor, you could call it, for iOS devices. So these are A11 devices are iPhone 8, iPhone X, A12 are iPhone XS, XS Max, and A13 comes under iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, and so on. So depending on what your iPhone is, to what the build is, or what processor it belongs to, and what iOS version it is. Both of these will determine what jailbreak you should go for and which jailbreak would be easier for you. Uh, Usually, the device does not get break, but at times you might have to restore your device through iTunes and so on. So ensure that proper precautions are taken before you jailbreak. Because once you jailbreak, your entire warranty of the device will be gone, and later on you will not be able to take any sort of you know accountability on it. So it's totally and solely your responsibility to go for it. Okay, so just a small disclaimer right here as well. Next, I'll be discussing about the common tools for jailbreaking. This is one of the latest versions, that is 13.5 with A13. Actually, I've written 12 A13 device. So ideally, what happens? So these are the common tools used: uncover and checkering. These are the one of the top jailbreaking tools out there in the market that uh, give you that help or an aid in jailbreaking majority of the devices up to 13.5. Beyond 13.5, it's not compatible at all. Okay, so I'm just going to take an example of a 13.5 device, since it is the last supported device by these two applications. Post jailbreaking, Cydia would be downloaded. So Cydia basically, it's like your jailbroken app store. So it will have all sort of sources where you need to add your links and then download as many tools as you can. Like since in earlier stages, wherein in your non-jailbroken state, it was not possible for anyone to do about jailbreaking. Sorry. So in earlier stages, what happens is it is not possible for anyone to download your applications. But in this case, after jailbreak, you can simply add a repo and then download as the many applications as you want and go about it. So Cydia is one of the uh, app stores. It's like an app store. It's like a jailbroken or jailbreaking app store. Uh, yes. So when you install, so what happens is when you first jailbreak your device, Cydia uh, automatically gets downloaded in your application in your device, and here you can simply just edit and you can edit your resources and add the URL of any sort of application. Like if I'm talking about FIDA or objection, you simply have to add the URL in one of the uh, here this is the slide. So here what happens in the sources, you will have to add or edit the application's URL and then add source. And post doing so, click on download, and the application will, or the intended URL's application will be downloaded automatically without any issue. Please note this will only be possible if your device is jailbroken. In cases of non-jailbroken device, this is not possible. So this is the reason, one of the reasons why pen testers or security professionals are told to jailbreak their devices, so that it is possible for them to add to use these tools like FRIDA, objection, SSH, and so on. Because these was not present inside, or was not present in the earlier stages. So next, yeah. So this is it's like, okay. So for iOS version, with the 13.5, this is a personal experience, because I've had the 13.5 iOS version, which and had to wait a couple of months to get a jailbreak. So I've personally tried this out. I had an iPhone 11 12.5 version. So the recent jailbreak, okay, which has been launched by Free Sandbox community and is being adopted by Odyssey too. Just like Uncover and you have your checkering, Odyssey is another tool which is basically used to jailbreak. And in this case, what happens is Odyssey tool will install an app store, jailbroken app store called Cilia. Okay, so this is like pretty similar to the Cydia which we had seen. It's like a similar like component. Cydia was it has been adopted recently by newer jailbreaks or newer jailbroken applications. So it's a new jailbreak app store for both iOS devices, but would need an external application called Sideloadly to do the same. So side loading basically uses the term called side loading. Okay, this like just like how it's named sideloadly. It is used to sideload the application. The reason is because if it's not possible to install Odyssey tool directly, just like we had spoken about Uncover and Checkream. Your Odyssey tool is not possible to be downloaded and installed directly on the iOS device. It needs a separate side-loading application called Sideloadly or any other application which can be used to sideload on your iPhone, so that is possible for people to download and install the same. So in this case, it's a little complicated because it's not as simple as Uncover, because in Uncover and in Checkream, you simply have to connect your devices and click on Start, and it will definitely be jailbroken the next maybe after 1 or 2 reboots. But in case of these, it's a trial and error process. It might take a couple of reboots for people to jailbreak it. So it depends on, like I said, depends on iOS version to version. So 13.5, 13.6, 13.6 is the latest version whose jailbreak has been made available. And but the 14.0 is still one of the devices whose jailbreak has not been available. Yeah, so basically, let me talk a bit about your Cydia. So it's actually an Electra jailbreak teams. It was developed to fill the gaps since Cydia is no longer. Yeah, so the reason why Cydia has come into picture is because this was developed to fill in the gaps since Cydia is no longer being currently updated. So it's like the current jailbreak app store for iOS devices. So in most of the recent jailbreaks, you'll definitely be seeing Cydia a lot as the default app store, wherein you'll be able to download and use all sort of tweaks or any sort of applications and functions by simply adding a resource and downloading it. Okay, so it's a common topic: jailbreaking versus rooting. This is like iOS versus Android, because jailbreaking is like the privilege escalation kind of mechanism for iOS, whereas rooting is the same equivalent for Android. Uh, Jailbreaking of iOS devices has sometimes been compared to rooting Android devices, although both concepts involve privilege escalation, but they do a lot differ in scope. So where Android rooting So while Android routing and jailbreaking are similar to that, both are used to grant the super user stat or super user level privileges, which may be transferred to one or more applications. Uh, so what happens here is, but but in unlike iOS phones, let me clarify, unlike iOS phones and tablets, nearly all Android devices already offer an app option to sideload the applications. Like initially I had spoken, in Android, it is possible for people or it is possible for the professionals to sideload the applications post even before, even before or after rooting. It is possible for them to download freely and then install it. There's no restrictions whatsoever based on signing or based on the loading of the application. But here, despite having been jailbroken, there is certain restriction wherein uh, it is difficult to sideload the applications directly unless it is it has been signed or it has been authorized by a proper person. So unless and until it is not officially from the App Store, it will not be installed at all at the device. So in that case, it is needed that either one should go for a side loading application like side loader or maybe some other application. Okay, so let me go back to Android. Many Android devices also provide owners the capability to modify. Yeah, so there are two things over here. Two things which are of importance. First is side loading, and the next is your uh, bootloader functionality. Okay, so in contrast, iOS devices are engineered with security features, including a locked bootloader, which cannot be unlocked by the owner to modify the OS without violating Apple's end-of-user license agreement. This is, I think, in Android, basically, first step is to unlock the bootloader and then go for rooting. Whereas in iOS, this particular thing is not possible because it is a locked bootloader. It is not possible for people to unlock it. So there is one difference, and second will be the side load. So what happens is, yeah. So until 2015, it was while corporations could install private applications onto corporate, side-loading or third-party apps onto iOS devices from sources other than App Store was prohibited altogether for most of the users and developer accounts. But after 2015, it is possible that the ability to install third-party applications was possible. But then for that, you would require external, Xcode and compilation of the applications. Now, if Xcode comes to the picture, that means you would require a MacBook because Xcode is an application that runs solely on your MacBook, and you would have to have some knowledge or advanced knowledge on how to go about designing it, compiling it, and for you need to have a MacBook plus your Xcode. So jailbreaking with iOS device to defeat all these security restrictions presents a significant technical challenge. So similar to Android, the alternative iOS App Store utilizes enterprise certificates offering modified or pirated releases of popular games and so on. So these are the differences why what is jailbreaking versus rooting, or what are the significant differences in these two mechanisms. Though they are same in theoretical, but it comes to practical, there are certain things which sets them apart and is pretty different. So let me go to the next slide. Types of jailbreaks. So in total, there are about 4 types of jailbreaks: fully untethered, semi-untethered, semi-tethered, and tethered. So basically, it depends on how independent it is from a computer. There are some standalone applications that do jailbreaks, and there's some softwares that application that require the assistance of a computer, say a Windows or a MacBook. So depending on how much it is dependent on the device, these jailbreak types will differ. Let us see in detail as to how it is or what it is all about. The first will be fully untethered. Okay. Um, See, okay, so untethered jailbreaks can be considered the holy grail of all jailbreaks because they only require the exploit to be run once, either via a website or a computer. So it's like if you attempt a jailbreak, even after you reboot multiple times, the jailbreak will not be, it will not go, uh, will not be null or it will not be void. You don't have to go about doing it again and again because there are certain jailbreaks that will disappear or will go back to normal if you do a reboot. So this depends on what type of a jailbreak it is. It can be either an application or it can be a device. So what happens is after once you have done a jail, if you have once you have clicked on the jailbreak and the jailbreak is completed, your device is fully jailbroken and won't require any further action henceforth. The exploit will stay on device and will be present even after you reboot multiple times, like I said earlier. But unfortunately, there hasn't been there is no recent jailbreaks available, untethered jailbreaks available in a very long time, and it's unlikely that we won't see one because we don't. A majority of the applications these days are do not belong to this category. They are quite different. They belong to the category of of installing the applications. It depends, or it belongs to the fully semi-untethered, wherein after a reboot, it will need to be jailbroken again. So that's something which a lot of applications are using. So but then there's one downside to this jailbreak, that if something really goes wrong, it could very well result in a boot loop requiring you to restore your device through iTunes or use or Finder. So yes, there's a high chance of effing up your device in case something goes wrong by going for this type of a jailbreak. But yes, if you're using some other jailbreaks wherein it automatically goes back to a normal device or normal state the moment you reboot, then there's a less chance of rebreaking a device, because if in case something goes wrong, it will just reboot and go back to the normal state. So this is all about fully untethered. Examples would be, as you can see in the screenshot, there. This is the first 6 pawn. Is that the name of the application, and there's also Pangu 9. Okay, these are the applications that use this particular functionality. Next is semi-tethered. Semi-tethered is, like I said earlier, it's very similar to semi-untethered, wherein the application either should be run using a computer or through a sideload application. So this checkering application should be used, or should be is used through a computer. So you have to connect your MacBook, because I think it works only on MacBook. So if you have a MacBook, you need to connect your phone to a MacBook, and pair it up, and then go for it. So but I think with this, and even this application requires you to go to jailbreak multiple times, depending on how many times you reboot. So due to this, you requiring a computer to re-jailbreak again and again, most choose to go for a semi-untethered jailbreak instead. Okay, because you cannot simply after every reboot, it's not possible for a person to connect their phones and then do a jailbreak. So this is an issue. So I mean, people usually go for applications that are standalone and that do not require the presence of a computer. Simply just move and click on jailbreak, and it will be done without any external devices to be connected. Next is tethered. Tethered jailbreaks are not meant to be used by the general public. Okay, this is just a type, and it's not usually out there in the public, because basically these exploits modify the device in a way that it requires a PC to even boot at all. It's not meant for general public. It can be used. I mean, it's not out there at all. So what topics we have are semi-tethered and fully tethered. So next I'll be going for fully tethered. So untethered jailbreaks can be okay. Uh, I've done. Okay, that's it. I think this is the only. I think this is slide has been depleted. Let's skip that. Okay, so I've last will be how to set up a lab environment. As we have seen that as we have spoken a lot about jailbreaking and how to jailbreak a device, so definitely it is considered, or it is expected that the device which you're going for is a jailbroken device. Unlike Android, wherein it is possible for people to go for emulators like Genymotion, or maybe using an emulator from Android Studio, the same is not applicable, or the same is cannot be expected from iOS, because iOS does not have any sort of a general public emulator. It has something called simulator, which can be simply used to simulate things, but it does not actually replicate a proper device. So even if Xcode has a separate function called simulator, it is not liable, or it is not suitable for pen testing as of now, or ever at all. So for pen test, it is required that you should have a device, an iDevice. Whether it is a jailbroken or non-jailbroken, it is up to you. But if you go for a non-jailbroken device, then it is possible that you would require a lot of complexities are present over there. Like you need to hook many scripts, FRIDA scripts, and because since it's a non-jailbroken device, so by default there are a lot of Apple restrictions embedded on it. So it is not possible for people or for anyone to get full access to the system and maybe go through the file structure and so on. So it becomes difficult for runtime analysis. Static is possible, but maybe runtime analysis will be a lot more difficult. So in such cases, there are certain mechanisms wherein it is possible to hook up FRIDA scripts in the applications and then run. So it's slightly difficult and complex. So that's probably the reason why it is considered to be a must that device should be jailbroken, so that it's easy for pen testers or security professionals to go about pen testing and it becomes easier and a lot more efficient as well. So yes, so if you want to set up a lab, you need to have a jailbroken device or non-jailbroken as well. It's fine. You can uh, you need to have a jailbroken tool depending on what iOS or chipset you're having. And next is MacBook. MacBook can be optional because if you go for a MacBook, it depends on what functions you're going to do. If it's something to do with static analysis, then you might not go for a MacBook. You can also use Moblexer tool because I think it's one of the good automated tools wherein you get all the static analysis results in one go instead of you going about and uh, doing it manually, which is pretty time consuming and a lot more, it's cumbersome. So it is better to go for something which is automated, but yes, you need to manually verify it as well. So once you're done with it, you need to personally go and check and manually verify if all the details, like in case if it's talking about permissions or if it's talking about certain additional details, so you need to manually check and confirm if that particular detail is valid or not, and then maybe report it or publish your report. So yes, it MacBook depends on what sort of details you are going for. Uh, but in normal cases, if you're going for static analysis, definitely go for Mobile Excel or there are many other tools like you have one more tool called there's one more Scrounger. So basically, it works for both Android and security assessment as well. Android and iOS applications. So if you use this tool, it's very similar to your iOS. It is similar to your Metasploit-like structures. So probably in the next time I can show you a framework, but I do not have it right now. But yes, you can if you have time, you can definitely go and check it out. Uh, it is very similar to Moblexer, but there are certain differences. So yes, I think that's it for now. That's it from my side. Uh, Hello.
Yes. Well,
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
thank you all for listening to this amazing iOS pen testing. And if there are any questions, then feel free to ask them right now. It's your last chance to ask this iOS guru some questions. So come on with the questions. Don't be shy. We all know she's a girl, but she can answer your questions. There's the first question. Do you know about greening a Soul iOS emulator?
Corellium, is it?
The question is, do you know about greening Soul iOS emulator?
No, because emulator. Yeah, I know about Corellium, and I think it's a paid service. I do not know which. Not sure which you're talking about, but I do know of one emulator, which is a paid service, but it's not really out there in the public. I'm not sure which they're talking about, so I'll have to check, but I do not know about this.
The guy who's asking these questions, he shared a link to you in Twitch that the source code has been made public, and he wants to tell you that.
Oh, that's cool. Thank you.
But you need to compel it, he says.
Okay.
Well, thank you for answering the question, of course, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I got a new thing to learn today.
Yeah, and thank Diok for his question. Are there any more questions? It's your last chance. Let's give them some seconds before we move on. It's your last chance, guys. You can talk with this lady about iOS. Don't be shy. I don't think there are any more questions. So, oh, there's one question.
Okay.
Do you think iOS is good for bug bounty hunting?
Okay, so bug bounty. I mean, it depends. If you are going for it, I mean, since it's not as prevalent as Android, so definitely you can opt for it, and it is better because it's pretty niche, category as for now, because not many people are going for it due to the setup constraints and many things. So yes, it is a good thing actually that one should invest in this domain and go for bug bounty as well, because I don't think it's as prevalent as Android or any web app, because it's web application and Android are totally filled with many contenders and players. So iOS is something which is not really explored that well and has many limited players due to these restrictions. So definitely you should go and check it out and learn. So because the lesser is the competition, the better it is, the better output you get. So it's a good thing to learn. So yes, it can be considered as a good option.